Both of you here. It's always great to have each of you here, frankly. You're always thoughtful and always add a great deal to our understanding of what are very complex issues. But I want to tell you, Chairman, I'm pleased I am with both these pieces of legislation. I genuinely am. As an appropriator, obviously, we don't like agencies that don't go through public scrutiny, that don't have to come up and make their case to Congress each and every year for the money that funds their operations, that have this kind of power. And again, nobody here is elected. I see a great deal of abuse over time, usually creeps into agencies like this, and there's no corrective mechanism. You're to be, frankly, commended to try and expand our Article I powers or reclaim those, which I think you rightly point out we have all too often abandoned. I think one of the great causes for frustration that I see in the country today is rulemaking authority, which is effectively lawmaking authority by unelected people. And you see, voters. Frankly, there's been enormous change in this body in the last few years. 60% of our conference is new since 2010. I don't know what it is on the Democratic side, but I know there's been a great deal of change there as well. Last year, the average age of a United States Senator dropped by 17 years in a single election cycle, with only a third of the body up. And yet people are frustrated because they don't see the kind of change that they want. And they can hire and fire congressmen and yet not get at the issue that's bothering them. I think this is an important, it's a modest step. Obviously, you don't have the jurisdiction everywhere, but it's an important step you're taking here to give people, I think, a sense that they have control over the government that they elect, but seems unresponsive in many occasions. So I think this is important. I also really want to commend you on raising the asset level on some of these regulations from $1 to $5 billion. We don't have a single bank in Oklahoma that was responsible in any meaningful way for what happened in 2000. They're just simply none that big. I think our largest bank would be in the $15 to $20 billion range, and that's certainly a considerable amount of assets, but it's not enough to destabilize the United States economy. I can tell you, having gone back to many of my community bankers, and I've lost several community banks now through this consolidation that's really driven by over-regulation. They will literally, I remember on one occasion, I was meeting with a group of bankers, and we were at a center of operations for one of the banks. I'd gotten there a little early, and the guy takes me back, and he shows me 12 people. And this is a relatively modest-sized bank. This it wouldn't come close to being a $500 million bank. And he said, "Now, those are 12 people that are good people. They work really hard, but they don't make this bank a dime, and they don't save this bank a dime. It's just extra regulatory burden." And these are banks, again, they're not engaged in credit swaps and derivatives, or they're classic small-town banks. So anytime you can slow down the demise of some of these banks by loosening the regulatory range on people that, again, do not threaten us. We know how to, if a bank gets in trouble, we're pretty good at knowing how to take care of an individual bank and protect the depositors and, punish the stockholders and then the bank management, but do so quickly and easily. But we are making it where it's going to be very difficult for small-town banks to continue to exist. I've got a lot of communities in my area. I'm sure you have some, and you're certainly do in Texas, where I've maybe got a little family bank, and there's no other financial institution in 50 miles in any direction. And if they go out of business, and believe me, the large banks aren't going to come. Ms. Waters actually made a good case. They're not going to come out there and put a branch. These people are going to have to drive 50 miles. And I've got a number of people that are in that situation now that are literally teetering, trying to make a decision as to whether or not given the regulatory burden. So I just want to applaud what you're doing here. I think these are extremely important things, and I think they actually go beyond the legislation themselves in a very fundamental way. Reclaiming first our Article I powers is reassuring the American people that they still run the place, that they can get their hands around the necks of their officials if they think they've done the wrong thing and get them out of office and hold them accountable, hold them responsible. I think you do that in one of these pieces. And again, I think making sure that people have access, that businesses are not effectively regulated out of existence, and that pose no threat, that were not part of anything that happened in 2008 and 2009, is something that to be commended. So I just want to congratulate you on what I think are two really excellent pieces of legislation. And I actually have no questions. I think the discussion earlier handled them, but I just wanted to make those points because I think they're very important. With that, I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman Cole, thank you very much. Chairman yields back.